Welcome to episode 360 of the show. For those of you who've been listening to the podcast for a while, you remember that recently I got interviewed on another show called the Abeg Who Send Me podcast, and it's hosted by Titi Ekundayo. I think her firm is it Elevation Partners or something like that, and they're a business development firm in Lagos. So they do business development, what else? Branding, business registration, a whole bunch of stuff. So they offer a whole suite of business services. And so if you haven't set up your enterprise and you feel like you need some help incorporating, working through procedures, getting your branding right, stuff like that, help with your sales and marketing as well, then those are the people that you should be talking to, assuming you're based in Lagos. I'm not sure what the formality would be like if they're working with people in other places like Abuja or Port Harcourt, people not based in Lag, basically. So, so that's it. So I was interviewed by Titi Ekundayo, and where was I? Okay, yeah. So anyway, so since then we've been following each other on the interwebs, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and then recently she put up one of those questions. I don't think it was a questionnaire, but I remember being tagged in it, and it was about the role in business, the role of luck in business, whether there's any such thing as luck in business and all that jazz. And so I figured I'd go ahead and make a podcast recording on it because it's something that I've spoken to one-on-one when people talk to me about these sorts of things, but I don't think I've broached it on the podcast or on my blog. So I figured let me just put my own 2 cents out there. Now, on the whole role of luck in business, I guess the most famous person who has weighed in on it, well, anyway, famous for my generation anyway, is this dude who is into capital allocation. What's his name? Warren Buffett, yeah. So Warren Buffett is famous for saying that luck has played a huge role in his business. And whenever people challenge him on that, this is the way he breaks it down. At least in one of the YouTube videos that I saw him do that. So he told the person that, well, first of all, I'm lucky that I'm a boy and that I was born in America at a time when skills in capital allocation were greatly valued. And he said if he was born a girl in a rural part of India where capital allocation was not valued, then he would be in big trouble. Now, if you put it that way, you can see that there are lots of circumstances beyond our control when we're born, or the kind of schools that our parents picked for us, and the timing of certain markets that have contributed greatly to our success. And in that sense, you could say that luck had a huge deal to play in that. But then there are some people who say, well, you can't really say it's luck because, number one, he not only has some talent when it comes to capital allocation, but he has done a lot of work with figuring out how best to allocate capital, where to invest capital, and of course, studying from his mentor, Benjamin, I can't remember his name, was it Benjamin Graham? I can't remember. The person who wrote the book, is it The Successful Investor or something like that? I can't remember the name of the book. I'll look for it and put it in the show notes. And so some people say, well, it wasn't purely luck because not only did you have this interest, you studied, you put in the work, but then, of course, I've heard him talk about on other forums that he ended up finding his mentor, Benjamin Graham, by luck anyway, because he was in school, I think Wharton School of Business or something, and he wanted to audit one class and ended up in the wrong class and then heard this guy talking about finance and then he was hooked. And so he even uses that as another example to show how luck played into it. That yes, he was interested in these sorts of things, but he happened to storm into this professor's class by accident, and then this person ends up becoming a huge hero of his. So there are people who say that no, luck doesn't have anything to do with it because you have to spend a lot of time honing your craft, learning, researching, honing your craft, and then trying to find the right timing. And of course, if you were to say that sort of thing, you would absolutely be correct. That there's also a huge amount of personal responsibility that is involved. I've heard a particular golfer, I can't remember if it was Tiger Woods, but some golfer who said that he's extremely lucky and he finds that the more times he practices, the luckier he gets. So I guess that's the sense in which you put in the time, you put in your reps, you focus on the fundamentals, and eventually you're better able to take up advantage of opportunities as they arise. So, whether luck is relevant in business or not, I guess this argument is going to go on for a very long time. And I guess for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, people are still going to be debating whether luck is important or not. But there's one thing that I'd like to bring to the fore. And I think that we both have slightly different understandings when we talk about luck or providence or whatever it is that we want to call it. Because people now come at it from a Christian angle to say, I'm a successful wedding photographer, I'm a successful wedding planner, and this is by the grace of God. Luck has nothing to do with it. So, yeah, some people say luck, some people say providence, some people say divine providence, some people say grace. But whatever it is, let us just assume that we're dealing with factors beyond our control. Because even if you're going to say it's providence, divine providence, or the universe speaking out in your favor, these are still things beyond your control. Now, this is where the huge disagreement or misunderstanding comes in. I think a lot of time when people talk about luck, some people get the impression that you're talking about unmerited success. Success that happened to fall upon you that you didn't work for or that you didn't merit. But I like to say that that is not necessarily the case. And if you realize that that's not necessarily the case, then when we say luck, we're talking about unmerited favor, unmerited blessings, unmerited good things that came your way that you didn't have to work for, then the whole debate becomes extremely clear. And then people's points of view, like Warren Buffett or Tiger Woods or whichever golfer said the whole lucky thing, now seem to make more sense. Because there are circumstances that are beyond your control. Yes, that play into your success. That definitely happens. But because it happened that way didn't mean that you didn't have to put any merit into it or you didn't have to earn it. So if Warren Buffett was still born a boy with an interest in capital allocation in America, but did nothing to, do nothing to nurture that interest and to execute on what he was learning, then he wouldn't be who he was today. And it's the same thing with the golfing pro. Yes, there's luck involved, but if you don't do the fundamentals of getting to the grass, learning how to select the right club, working on your swings, what else? All the stuff that you golf people do. I don't play golf, but I have a client who plays golf. He's a much older gentleman. I think he's getting on 70 now. So maybe when I'm that age, I'll start playing golf. But until then, yeah. So the golfing fellows, I mean, the people who have success when it comes to golf and all that, you still have to put in your fundamentals. So when you realize that when we talk about luck, we don't mean something unmerited or something you didn't work for, then it all makes sense. So yes, there are things that are beyond your control that will happen to you. But then, if you don't put any merit or work into the equation, you're not going to be able to take advantage of how these things roll. So, that's one reason why I personally blend with Warren Buffett, because I started my entrepreneurial journey as a wedding photographer, and luckily, I happened to be born at a time in Nigeria when the technology was becoming increasingly accessible. What else? And then there happened to be a burgeoning market that was opening up when it came to these sorts of things. So it's possible that someone could have been born exactly with my own unique skill set, but maybe born 20 years before in the 1960s, and he wouldn't have been able to make a career out of wedding photography because the timing just wasn't there. Digital photography wasn't there. Social media wasn't there. Let's see what else. I don't know if disposable income has anything to do with it. That's when we talk about things on a macroeconomic level, because I suspect that maybe now wedding photography is a booming enterprise because maybe as a whole there's more available and disposable income that people can toy around with. But that's just a guess anyway. I don't have any educated and informed opinions about these sorts of things. But I'm just trying to use this to show you how, yes, there are times and places and situation and things and economic factors that are beyond your control, which line up to your interests, to your skills, to your skill set, and just happens to make things fortuitous. So there's a role that luck has to do in business, and some of us are doing our best to take active advantage of that. For instance, if you're listening to this podcast right now, you are acutely aware that in Nigeria, most of the podcasts that are out there are gist focused. We don't have business podcasts in Nigeria. From the research I've done so far, I have Nigeria's longest running business podcast, 3 years, close to 400 episodes. I think this is episode 361, I think, or 50 something. Anyway, so I am banking on the fact that at some point in the future, people who are listening to all these just podcasts are going to grow up. They're going to start having jobs. They're going to start trying to grow businesses. And eventually they're going to start looking for business resources that are out there. And when they do, they're going to find a couple of people in the space. There will be me with my own podcast, Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry. There will be my friend, Titi Ekundayo, with our podcast, Abeg Who Send Me, which is about journeys in entrepreneurship. Let's see, who else? Not too many people out there. Bottom line is, when the time comes and people start looking, you're going to find very few of us. And these are the voices and the platforms and the people that people are going to gravitate to when that time comes. And guess what? People are going to say, Tabishima was lucky, Titi Ekundayo was lucky that they happened to have a podcast at that time. So, yeah, in a sense, yes, there's some luck. But you can see how folks like Titi Layo and I are trying to use luck to our advantage, because we know that it's only a matter of timing. When the timing will be, we can't figure out. But here we are, building our voices, building our platforms, improving on our offerings. I mean, she's building her own firm, Elevation Partners. They already exist. They're doing stuff. And I have finished setting up my sales consultancy practice. I'm pushing out speaking engagements, trainings, things like that. So yes, there's an element of timing that Titi and I have no control over. But the time will come, and we'll be able to take advantage of it because we have put in the work. I have been podcasting for close to 3 years now, and this is almost 400 episodes. And the same thing with Titi. I've been podcasting for about a year. Then there's another friend of mine who I spoke about in yesterday's podcast, who has a podcast that is based on the African Free Trade Continental Act. She's a lawyer, and that's what her podcast is about. She's already seeing some speaking engagements, people who are looking for that sort of expertise. I think she has spoken at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, I think. I'm not sure, I have to confirm. I know she has had one speaking engagement already. So, yes, there's a certain element of luck and timing that we do not know, but we're still doing our thing anyway, so that when that time comes, like that professional golfer, we're going to be able to say, I've been extremely lucky, but I've been putting in the reps. And so we will find that the more reps we put in, the luckier we are going to get. So if you're one of those people who's been sitting on the fence, you have no opinion either way about the role of luck in business, I hope I've been able to convince you. If you're one of those people who say that Warren Buffett and people who talk like that, like the golfing champ, that they're talking full of BS, I hope I've been able to convince you that there is some merit to what it is that they're saying. And then when they say luck, they are not talking about undeserved or unmerited chance or unmerited blessings just falling out of the sky. There is always going to be a certain measure of merit involved, and you have to put in the work. Because like the good book says, that he who is faithful in little things, greater shall be added unto them. So let's be faithful in our station where we are now, and let's keep putting in the reps. Eventually, greater things will be added unto us. And so let's be humble, because no man or no woman is self-made 100%. There's always providence working on our behalf, and there are also people who have invested in us in ways that we could not have anticipated. Our parents for the schools that they sent us to, the hobbies that they try to inculcate in us, the extracurricular activities, other learning opportunities, things like that. So let's be humble. Nobody is self-made 100%. And when we're flossing and we're big boys and girls and we're all billionaires, we should be able to have some humility to say, it wasn't all me. there were some things that I couldn't have anticipated for and I couldn't have planned. And when that time comes and we step on stage and we talk about our success, let's inspire the young ones to do the same, to keep putting the reps in and to wait for things to align. Because it's only when you are good and solid with your fundamentals, especially when we're talking about business, solid with the business fundamentals, that you're going to be able to take advantage of these fortuitous circumstances that arise. Whether you think it's pure luck, or it's the universe looking out for you, or you think it's divine providence, or divine grace, or whatever it is that you want to call it. So thank you very much for listening to the show. I'm your host, Abuja-based sales consultant, Tavishima Ayede. Thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next recording.